to you. Another items are the easiest, and in the last class I taught you how to transfer a simple to complex compound or complex to simple. Today I want to discuss as for example, we are in simple, but how to jump or how to swim in the complex or compound. Today I want to describe through giving some example, and that is when you are in infinitive phrase, in the time how to go in complex or compound. In this term you can make complex by the help of that, so that, and lest. By citing an example, we notice that look at the blackboard. I address especially my dear student Zahana Raiti. This is very important for you. Look at the whiteboard. I wanted quiet isolation to do some troublesome writing. Here we notice today to do is infinitive, and when you are in this type, how to go in complex. In this way, at first you have to emphasis on the two clauses, and then you can add a convention. In this way, I wanted quiet isolation sorry, a cold seriously seized me and I feel very coughing. Don't mind. I wanted quiet isolation so that I could do some trouble, some writing. Here you can observe I wanted quite isolation. This is a clause, and another clause we find I could do some troublesome writing. Here you have to add could, can or could, may or might. When you have to add a so that, then it is very needed for you for the construction of the infinitive phrase, for the cause of construction of complex, and by the help of so that you have to need answer of this question. The first clause, the principal clause, is past simple, and that is why you have to use could or might. In this way, you can make a complex from the simple when you find infinitive phrase. Here you have to know the construction. You have to know the construction of the infinitive phrase. To root verb and extension. This is the construction of infinitive. This one, here we find another construction, a participle phrase. When we are in participle phrase, how to swim in the complex or compound. Compound is easy one, and that is why I only want to see or want to display the complex. Finding disturbance of the siphon, finding me, he acted crazy. This is a simple. Here we find one clause, and finite is non-finite, and acted is finite. Here at first you have to emphasis on the making of clause, and that is he found me. When you find the participle phrase, and there you find the variation of the participle, and these are present participle, past participle, and perfect participle. This example is present participle, and when you find the participle, you have to use the conjunction when, while, as, since, because. In this way, when he found me, comma, he acted crazy. Here we notice this clause is full-fledged clause, but this is phrase, participle phrase. But how to make the clause? Here, when find is finite, that means found, it is clause, and In this term, you can use when, while, since. These are used in this type. Here we find another example of a perfect participle. Having found me, he acted crazy. Actually, here we have to say that theory structure of participle, present participle is used in the time of sense of active, and past participle is used during the sense of passive. And when we find the suspension and the interval between two clauses, then you have to do the perfect participle. Here we can say that when he had found me, he acted crazy. You have to choose one present participle or perfect participle when you find the interval, and when you find the sense of active or when you find the sense of passive. You have to prefer one from this participle. In the next noun phrase, we are in noun phrase, and how to go or how to swim or how to jump in the complex or compound. There, when you want to go in complex, by the you have to make the complex by the help of relative pronoun. In this way, he is an intelligent. He is an intelligent boy. This is noun phrase, and this is simple. And in this situation, how to go in complex? There you have to make by the help of relative pronoun. In this way, by citing an example, at first you have to emphasize on the two clauses, and then you have to add a conjunction, that is relative pronoun. He is a boy who is intelligent, intelligent, intelligent. Here, this is a relative clause, and antecedent the boy. In place of who, relative pronoun. Here we find he. In place of he, you have to use a relative pronoun. When you find the person, in place of person or in lieu of or instead of person, you have to add who. And when you find the things or material noun, you have to do the which, and when you find the animals, you have to do the that. In this way, you can make a complex by the help of by the help of relative pronoun. Here we find another important phrase, that is prepositional phrase, that is in this way, at the time of his walking off. At the time of his walking off, you have to use comma, and then you can use a clause. At the time of his walking off, it was raining. This is a prepositional phrase. At first, we find the infinitive phrase, then we find the participle phrase, and then we have to come the prepositional phrase. Prepositional phrase. Then check করেন. Setting missing, that is why the sound is absurd, and that is why I rectify it. Don't mind. Anyway, at the time of his walking off, it was raining. Here we have to make the clause, and that is when, by the help of when, while, as, since, because, you can make complex or complex. When he woke up, it was raining. Here, a noticeable thing, that is, you have to emphasis on the making of clause. If you want to make a clause, and then conjunction is not a factor. Conjunction is totally dependent on you, and clause making is very important for you. Here we find this is a prepositional phrase, and prepositional from the prepositional phrase we go in clause. How is it? Here in place of his, he is subjective form, and then waking up. Here we find waking up, and wake. In place of wake, we have to use the past form, because the principal clause is past tense, and that is why the subordinate clause must be past tense. In this way, we can make complex. From the prepositional phrase. The phrases are very important for you. Here we find another important structure, by-gerund. This is very important for you. By-gerund. In this way, by reading book, you can be successful. You can be successful by reading book. Here we find by-gerund. When you are in by-gerund, in that time you can make a complex if and affirmative sentence. In this way, if you read book, comma, if you read book, you can be successful. Here we find the subordinate clause is if. This is you can say another name of this clause is conditional, and when you find vice-gerund, you can make a conditional sentence, and then you can add a conditional conjunction if, and this is a principal clause and this is a subordinate clause. In this way, you can make a complex by the help of vice-gerund, and by the when you find by the vice-gerund, you can take a help from the conjunction if. Another important construction we find without gerund. This is another important construction. When you are in without gerund, in the time, you can make a complex by the help of conditional sentence if and negative sentence. In this way, by setting an example, look at the whiteboard. Without reading a book, comma, you cannot be successful. Look at the term without gerund. When you find without gerund, you can make complex by the help of conditional conjunction if or unless, and in this way, if you do not read book, comma, you cannot be successful. Here I want to say comma is the vital fact of adverbial clause. When you make adverbial clause and you have to use conjunction in the beginning of the clause, of course you have to use between two clauses a comma. This is a very vital fact. Some of the students of our society, they write two clauses, but they are completely absent-minded to use a comma. But without using comma, you cannot imagine a perfect clauses. Remember it. In this way, you can make complex by the help of if or unless. Here we find another example. When you find because of, on account of, owing to, or due to, then how to sum in the complex in the time. You can use as since, because. In this way, by Giving an example, we notice that because of my illness, comma, I could not go to college. Here we notice because of my illness. Here we find the possessive form my, because after preposition you have to use the objective form, and as you use a noun, and before noun you have to use the possessive form. But when you make a clause in this way, you have to make this I could not go to college because I was ill. But how is it? Here we find in the phrase because of my illness. Illness, here we find illness, but how is it ill? Here you have to use a finite was, and that is why after a beaver you have to use the adjective form, and here you have to use the possessive form, and that is why the illness is correct form after possessive form. And here when you want to use another conjunction as or since, you can keep the first clause in the first time of this clause in this way, as or since I was ill, comma, I could not go to college. In this way, these are very important, and this is very noticeable thing that when you want to use because and all time, you have to use the cause or rational clause of after because, and that is why we have to interchange the clause, first clause go in after because, and when you have to use as or since, you can keep the first sentence in the first, and then I could not go to college. In this way, by the help of because of, by the help of because of, or owing to, and on account of, in that time you can make complex by the help of because, as, since. Another important construction that is nominative absolute. This is another important structure in English language. This is a type of ornament. This is a type of rhetoric of English language, when you have to write a free writing. In the time, the nominative absolute is very essential for you, and that is why look at the whiteboard. What is nominative absolute? Nominative absolute is a type of participle phrase, and that is the subject between two subject of the two sentences is completely different. Look at the whiteboard. The weather being very cold there were no birds or animals. Look at the term. This is a very fantastic structure. Here we find weather. This is a subject, and birds or animals introductory there implies by the help of introductory there, and here two subjects is completely different between two clauses. But in the first sentence we find the non-finite verb being, and that is why this is phrase and this is participle phrase. And in that time, how to swim or how to go in the complex, in that time you can use as since or when, while, as the, in this way, as the weather was very cold, there were no birds or animals. In this way, at the beginning of this clause, we find the non-finite verb, and when we have to make complex, we have to make the clauses finite verb was in place of, or in lieu of, or instead of being. We have to use was. Why we use was in place of is? Here a very noticeable thing that this clause, the principal clause, is past tense, and that is why the subordinate clause must be past tense. This is very important, and this is very rhetoric, and this is very important or a significant item of writing English language. And when you find chutu in the simple, in the time, how to go in complex, here we have to cite an example, and that is he is too weak. He's too weak to work. This is simple, and in that time or in that term, how to jump in complex, in that time you have to use the conjunction so that two types of so that you find in English language, and that is attached and detached. Attached so that and detached so that. Now here you have to use the detached so that, and that is he is so weak that he can't walk. Here the two infinitive, this two makes a negative. This two makes a negative construction, and that is why when we make the subordinate clause, we have to make the negative sentence, and by the help of can't or may not or might not or could not, in this way. And another important item we notice, another important item we find the in spite of and despite. When we are in spite and despite, in the time, how to make complex. In that time you can take the conjunction though and although. In spite, in this way, displaying a question simple, in spite of his poverty, in spite of his poverty, comma, he was honest. Here, this is a very important structure, in spite and despite. In spite of his poverty, here we find a prepositional phrase, but how to make a clause in this way? In this time, you can use the though, although, and even though. In this way, though he is, though he was poor, he was honest. Here we find, when you find in spite and despite, in that time you can make complex by the help of though, although, and even though. In this way, we find another important construction, enough to. I am not vindictive. I am not vindictive enough. Uses enough to take revenge. Here we find another important construction of simple enough to. When you find enough to in that time, you can use the to. You can use so that. By the help of so that, detached so that, you can make a complex. In this way, I am not vindictive. I am not vindictive. I am not so vindictive that I cannot take revenge. Listen what I say. When you find enough to, in that time you can make complex by the help of detached so that. When you find to, you can make complex by the help of so that. And when you find a nominative absolute, you can make by the help of when, while, as, since. When you find a bigerund, you can make complex if and affirmative sentence. And when you find without gerund, in that time you can make complex by the help of if and a negative sentence. When you find infinitive phrase, in that time you can make complex that, so that, and list. And when you find a noun phrase, you can make complex by the help of relative pronoun and a relative clause or antecedent. And when you find because of, on account of, owing to, and due to, in that time you can make complex because, as, and since. Another important item, and that is enough to. When you find enough to, you can make complex by the help of detached solid. And in this way, you can make from the simple to complex. And I mean the compound is very easy enough. Only conjunction, only to use conjunction and or but when you find though although in that time you can use but during the compound sentence, and when you find when you find that so that in that time you can use by the help of and or and so you can make a compound. In this way, from the simple and complex compound, from the simple you can make complex or compound by the help of various important conjunction. But actually this is a nonsensical terms, but actually conjunction is totally dependent on the candidate, and when you have to know to make the subordinate clause or principal clause easily, you have to make complex or compound is your own system, and that is the sensical system. Thank you. No more today wishing you to be thanks to thank you everybody. Thank you very much.